All right. Good evening, and welcome to Momentum Chat. I'm your host, Majida Bay. And just like I promised, last week we talked about having a vision for your life. But first, it has to start with your mindset. So, what is your money mindset? If you want to find out, stay tuned and we'll talk with you soon. Good evening. Welcome, John. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Fantastic. Man, I'm excited about our conversation. Yes, yes. This is Tuesday. Welcome to Momentum Chat. For those of us, those of you who have been following us, definitely invite your friends, share it. We're going to be having a great conversation tonight. Last week, we talked about turning paychecks into profits. All right.
Yeah.
And so for the month of December, right, it's usually a month where people are either winding down or getting ready for the holidays or maybe starting to plan for their next year. And so I don't want people to go into 2021 with the same mindset that they had in 2020. All right.
Right.
I wanted to help them shift their mindset today. And so we're going to have a conversation about that. And I want to start first with a quote. All right. I actually came across this quote earlier today.
Okay.
Somebody shared it in another group that I was in. And the quote was this: I do not fix my problems. I fix my thinking, then problems fix themselves. I was like, oh, that's so perfect. Great way to start the conversation. So, for
Incredible.
those
Yeah.
who don't know us, all right, John Epting is a financial broker. He's been in the industry for 19 plus years, married, husband, father, man of God, and just somebody I truly respect and admire. Very, very knowledgeable in our industry, right? He's the guy who doesn't learn the tricks of the trade. He learned the trade. And so somebody who I definitely respect immensely because he's invested the time, he's put in the work to understand his industry so that he can be of value to other people. So welcome again, John.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So first I want to start with this question, right? And for those that are listening live, like I said, share it, but also comment in the chats. Let us know some of the answers to these questions as we're going through them. So the
Yep.
first question I want to ask you, John, is
Hmm.
what were some of the messages you heard or learned about money growing up? Can you share that with our audience? What was it for John Epting?
well, I grew up on the south side of Chicago and in the south suburbs of Chicago. And then at 16, we moved to North Platte, Nebraska. And I was born to a 19-year-old young lady. Met my dad in college. They were not married when they got pregnant with me. I'm the oldest of nine. And then they came from certain backgrounds. My mom was born and raised in Tennessee, Mount Pleasant, Tennessee. My dad is from Isola, Mississippi. So, believe it or not, your environment can create your financial blueprint just as much as you hearing certain things. So, the things I heard, because we did struggle in the beginning. I do remember when my mom and dad were on welfare and food stamps and things like that. And I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of, especially here in the place where I am in my life. They didn't use it as a hand out; they used it as a hand up. So it platformed, it allowed them to feed their family. But then my dad worked very hard to make sure he secured positions. But there was some things that they would say, or not just them. Sometimes it's not just your parents; it's your aunts, your uncles, it's the school you went to. It's a lot of things. So I heard things such as money don't grow on trees, and what do you think? I'm made of money, and rich people are greedy, and all them rich people, all they care about is money, and so it kind of paints a picture in your mind. And if you tell a lie long enough, often enough, loud enough, you'll start accepting it as truth. So Those things kind of shaped my financial blueprint, and I had to detox myself. So even, it's gonna sound funny, I kind of self-sabotaged myself in my early 20s as a young adult as well because of that financial blueprint. Now, I made a lot of money in my 20s. I was in the military. I did a bunch of things on the side, from bouncing to security to loss prevention to detailing cars. I mean, I did so many different things. And even though I made a lot of money, my wife at the time, my ex-wife now, was in the military. I was in the military. So we had two E4, E5 paychecks coming in the house. And also I did a bunch of stuff on the side. And when we divorced, I had nothing to show for it. I equate that to my money blueprint. I equate that to just being bad. And I believe God was using it, because today, what I get to do, it's more than just a business. It's a ministry for me. Like we recently went through some files in my office, and there's literally hundreds of files, maybe not hundreds, a little under 100. So close to 100 files that I've never made money on. I've never charged, because I had to help those families in a different way. It was kind of cleaning up their money blueprint, helping them get out of debt and things like that. Now in the future, as we continue to clean them up and things like that, or if they stay the course, some of them don't stay the course. Maybe I'll make something, by implementing an investment strategy or something for them. But there's some I never made any money off of, because I see my business more as a ministry or a calling, if you will, that I get to educate people and get them some financial literacy. And I believe that makes people a little dangerous. So, but yeah, I heard some that shaped my money blueprint.
Yeah, I heard a lot of those similar messages, same messages. And just from what you were sharing about what you did in your early 20s, speaks to, right, you saw your dad work hard, so you worked hard, right? So there was always this kind of mindset you had to work hard for money, right? You had to go get it. But as you mentioned, a lot of people don't have much to show for it. So my next question is, how did that blueprint, right? How did those things that you heard about money, how did that influence your money decisions as you got older?
Yeah, well, I'll give a big one. There was many times when I could have purchased things in cash, whether it had been a car, whether it had been numerous things, yet I still used credit. And not that I was using credit wisely. There's a way to use credit in a wise way, where you're leveraging, and you're leveraging it to get more assets by its liabilities. But because I always believed you would always have a car payment, I remember saying that at 23, 24 years old, I think I was. I remember saying that out loud. It's kind of embarrassing to think now that, I used to actually say, well, you always have a car payment. You always have and that's not true. You don't have to. You can purchase a $80,000 car, $100,000 car cash if you want. Now there's a whole gamut of things that plays a part in which, $100,000 car, sometimes you may not want to pay cash for it, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into that. But those types of things, that's some of my financial blueprint that influenced my decisions. Because I believed a certain things that's false. I walked in that falseness, if you will. And I'm not going to lie to you, it was painful coming to the realization that my beliefs were inaccurate. We live in a world today where most people aren't looking for facts or the truth. They're looking for their feelings to be validated. And I'm a little opposite. I got a chance to speak with a young man that I've known for, a good number of years. And I don't know if I would call him, I don't know if he would call me a mentor, but I got to spend some time with him yesterday over the phone. He doesn't live in our area. And one of the things I was talking to him about was, I'm at a place in my life, but I have been for a number of years now. I only want the truth. I only want facts. I may not like them, right? Because it may go against my beliefs. But if it's truth, I'd rather deal with that than continue to walk in falseness and make decisions based on that falseness. And there's many people doing that, especially financially, because they just have these beliefs, and those beliefs aren't even true. And it affected my financial decisions a great deal, especially as a man of God. Once I start understanding it's almost 3,000 scriptures on money and possessions in the Bible. Once I actually understood, I read the content in context, and I caught what was being taught there, totally changed the way I thought about finances. And I know we're talking about finances, but also I want to equate this to every part of your life. Your career, your business. If you have some falseness in your mind, you make decisions based off of those falseness. And what if, let me just say this. What if what you believe about anything is wrong? Would you want to know the truth? Would you want to know the truth so that you can operate from it? And what I'm seeing, especially with social media and the media and all those types of things, it looks like most people aren't looking for truth. They're looking for their feelings to be validated, and that's why most people lean to watch a certain channel, because it validates what they already believe and it makes them feel good, right? And so forth and so on. Or they go to a certain church that validates, right? And me myself, I just kind of like things that challenge my thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, that helps you to grow when your thinking is challenged. I even think growing up, my father would say things like, don't just accept even what they taught us, right? Like, learn it and understand it for yourself. Don't just accept what somebody tells you. You need to read and study it for yourself. And so that applies to money too. Now, something that you mentioned kind of ties into my next question about a false belief. So here's a question that I think may challenge some people's false belief about money. Is money easy or hard to come by? And for you, John, right, you answer that question and then tell me why.
Okay. Unfortunately, people are going to take my answer based off of where I am. And I'm okay with that, but I'm going to say this before I even give the answer. I now believe this even for the times that I didn't know better, right? Money's easy to come by. I'll give you an example. Because there's a lot of people just out here who think everybody's struggling. 2020 was bad for everybody, right? The economy's bad for everybody. Even when the economy crashed, 08, 13, all these different things, they think it's just, oh my God, everybody's hurting, and that's so far from the truth. I'm not even articulate enough to break down how far from the truth that is. But I'll say it this way. One of my goals, one of my dreams, and this, I want a $2 million bus. It's basically a Greyhound for the people who don't understand, but it's a motor coach, and it's brand new. Especially if I go to Liberty Coach, who I think I'm gonna have design and build mine, and theirs is more expensive than others because of the way they do it, the weight displacement and that thing. But it's a 45-foot bus, H345 Prevost. It's going to be pretty decked out. It's going to be a bath and a half, and it's $2.2 million, brand new. Okay, they're building these, and Liberty Coach is just one company that builds them. We got Emerald, we got Marathon, we got a company right here in Suffolk by the name of Featherlight. They have 2 locations here in Suffolk, Virginia, and also down in Florida. And this is what they do. This is all they do is build these types of buses for people. If they're built and pushing these out, and then there's a bunch of used ones on sale for $500,000, $1.2 million, $750,000. If it's that many of them being built, it's a lot of people who can afford them. I'm just trying to stretch your mind a little bit that everybody ain't struggling. It's people who are buying these types of coaches. I know someone who literally changed his entire real estate portfolio during the COVID coronavirus pandemic. And I'm not talking about $200,000, $300,000 homes. I'm talking about $10, $20 million homes. Why am I telling you that? Because there's a lot of money and it's actually easy to come by. It shocks me how I was on YouTube today. All right. So I spend some time on YouTube every day. Just I want to learn something. So I go to YouTube. There's a lady. I don't know how this crap ended up in my algorithm, but it did. So all this lady does is she just films herself. The video that popped up in mine was just her cleaning the house. Now, she's cleaning the house in a negligee, but she's cleaning the house. That's all she's doing. Matter of fact, that's all the caption is she cleaning the house. She had more than 1.5 million followers because I went to her page. All her videos are this crap, right? Or her doing yoga or something. And that video of her cleaning the house, mind you, had 987,000 views. I don't even I don't understand how YouTube pays people, but I don't even understand that. My brain doesn't, I'm a financial guy. I don't get that stuff, right? So I don't get all the algorithm. But why am I telling you that? She's making money doing that. So money's actually easy to come by. Keeping it, different story. Knowing what to do with it, different story. That's a different ballpark. Just because you know how to make money don't mean you know how to keep it. Don't mean you know what to do with it.
Very true.
There's a bunch of people who, Mike Tyson fought this past weekend. Roy Jones, two of the greatest fighters to ever fight, right? But there was a time, they say, I don't remember the number my wife was telling me, that Mike Tyson, over his time of fighting in his prime, right? Last time he was in a ring was over 15 years ago. And in his fighting of his prime, he made, I don't know, something like almost $500 million or some crazy number it was, right? And today he's only worth like 18 now because he made 10 million from that fight. Right? What'd that tell you? He knew how to make it because he knew how to fight. See, fighting ain't got nothing to do with money. And that's why you got the team of people around you too. So to answer your question, do I feel money is easy or yes? But let me say it this way. I believe it's easy if you know why you're going after it.
I love that. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you know why you're going after it. If you're clear on why you're going after it. If it's just for the money, it's extremely hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's remarkably hard. But if you've narrowed down, like we talked about last month, if you narrow down what you want, why you want it, and what you're willing to do and sacrifice to get it, it actually becomes pretty easy then.
I concur. I absolutely agree. And it's interesting, I guess we call it a case study with my mother within like just this past year.
Yes.
Crisis, pandemic, all of this stuff. And her giftedness in teaching has afforded her opportunities to where people are like, will you homeschool my child? Will you do this? Yes. And like they're just offering it to her, but she's operating in her gift, and so helping people to recognize and find that. And like you said,
it's her gift and her passion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, your mom is actually good at this. And it's funny how you talked about your dad, in never allowing you guys to just accept things, because I know your parents, right? So if they ever view this or something, that shows such a level of maturity that most parents never get to. Because there's this ego when it comes to us as parents that we know best. When the facts are, it's a bunch of stuff we don't know best. We should get out of the way. We should, at certain points, it's almost like we shouldn't even give our children advice, especially unsolicited advice. The problem is most of us as adults, we believe we've earned the right to give our children unsolicited advice when you haven't. A lot of times we messing them up. So I commend your parents. If they ever listen to this, or matter of fact, when you get off here, just tell them that John said, because they know who I am, but John said, incredible level of maturity for you not to force your child to think like you, right? For you to,
Yeah,
he actually told you to question everything that comes out of his mouth.
absolutely. Absolutely.
That is beautiful.
Yep. And
Wow.
it wasn't, I guess, so much from them, but like he was okay with that too.
Okay.
But just sometimes people around you, sometimes your environment, right? Your community, your faith community, your family. And I totally like have to give credit to my parents because I grew up in that environment. I saw what they did, like they chose a different path from what they grew up with,
Okay.
and the strength, the courage that it took to kind of like walk their own path, right? I saw that example. So like when I chose to walk a different path from some of the things that they taught me, it was kind of like you kind of set the bar, you kind of set
Yeah.
that example, you were that model. And so I never felt bad about like, all right, they set a different foundation for me here, maybe I can help my family set a different foundation financially, right? Like that became like my purpose, right? All right,
Yeah.
y'all set us up on this foundation to help build our character and value system and all that good stuff. Make sure that we, had a certain sense of self and had a certain sense of self-worth. I mean, knew who we were. All right, I'm taking it a step further. We need to get our finances together too. Now we can think clearly, right? We can think for ourselves. We can critically think and analyze certain things. Now we gotta, all right, we can analyze our finances because they were still operating from those past patterns of their families, right? Or doing things financially that weren't necessarily in their best interest or benefiting them or benefiting our family. And so some of the experiences that I had growing up, I'm like, all right, something's got to change. And so that became like my focus for the next generation. All right, I need to change this for my children to ensure that they have a different foundation to build their financial house on. So
Wow.
absolutely agree with that.
That is
And
so.
so tying that into my next question,
Yeah.
has your financial blueprint changed from that of your parents or grandparents?
Oh, yeah.
And can you share specifically how it's changed?
Okay. When you ask how, are you asking how I did it, or are you asking like specifically how I, is it, or both probably?
Both, but the how is going to be actually the next question. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as parents, this is why we should humble ourselves and put our ego in our back pockets as parents. We don't know everything. And even though our intentions are good in trying to coach our children on certain things and certain paths, um, we still don't know it all, right? And what I learned in shifting my financial blueprint, I've never felt uh, some type of animosity towards my parents because of how things went. As far as I'm concerned, my parents are heroes to me. To this day, they're still heroes to me. Big John,
Absolutely.
Dorothy Epstein are heroes to me. They raised 9 children. I mean, I remember my dad, we used to cut meat at A&P, right? At the grocery store. And then he found out, early in my career in the financial game that he sold insurance for Montgomery Ward. I didn't even know Montgomery Ward sold insurance, right? And he just did so many things. He tried everything. My mom tried all kind of stuff, and she did market research, and she did all these things. So one of the things I love about them is they went and made it happen. My dad, I respect him a great deal because of where he came from and the environment he grew up in. I, I'm gonna just say it. As a black man, it was weird for him to stick around. He was the abnormal one. And he had 9 children with the same woman.
Mm.
That's abnormal. So they're heroes to me. But here's the facts. It was certain things they didn't know. So I'm not mad that they didn't teach it to me. They couldn't. It's not their
Right.
fault, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm constantly trying to grow myself. I was in therapy today. I had a great time with the guy I get to see every other week now. we've throttled back. He only wanted me to come once a month, and I was like, no, I want to come every 2 weeks. so I'm paying him, right? I I hired him, right? So I get to spend some, had a great time with him, but I'm constantly trying to grow and become better so that I have something in this guy to give out to my daughter and give out to the young man who may want to court her and ask for her hand in some point, right? But if it's nothing in here, I got nothing to give him.
Right.
Okay. So in growing my financial blueprint, I said all of that to say, in growing my financial blueprint, it came from, now I understand you should have an emergency fund, not have a credit card for emergencies. I was taught to have a credit card for emergencies. Now I know you should have an emergency fund. Start with a baby emergency fund. I'll steal something from Dave Ramsey, right? $1,000 for each adult that's in the house, right? In a liquid account where you guys can get to it quick. Stop trying to put it somewhere to invest it and put it in Apple. And just, it's there for emergencies. It's not supposed to grow a bunch of interest. It's just supposed to be there when you need it. Right. And then hopefully at some point you get to, 6 months, 9 months, maybe even a year of your expenses, i.e. or income in a liquid account where you can, if something happens, right, you lose a family member, the hot water heater go out in the house, the air conditioning unit go out, you could just pay for it. Right. I always say the only people who have emergencies are those who don't have an emergency fund. When you got an emergency fund, it's business as usual. We need tires. Okay. Call Tire Rack or take the car down to Discount Tire. I mean, it's business. When you don't have it, now we're trying to finagle and figure what my mom used to say. Here's one I learned as a child: robbing Peter to pay Paul. Mm-hmm. At some point, both of them coming at your house, right? They both showing up, right? You better hope they ain't Italian. You know what I'm saying? Mafia.
Playing Russian with the credit cards, like, all right, let me see if I got enough on this one.
You know what I'm saying? And I've seen that at stores. I've been behind people who they had to put some on this card and put some on this card, and it's an interesting place to be. So those are a couple of things that I understand a little bit better now, and it took me a long time to really understand where I fit in when it came to leveraging. Right, leveraging money. Like right now, there's cheap money out there. And what I mean by cheap money is you can literally get a car loan at 0% interest. That's cheap money, right? So instead of me taking $80,000 from some account to pay the car off, right? I'm not being charged any interest anyway, right? Pay the payment. Same thing with mortgages right now. Same thing with real estate, right? Instead of paying $400,000, $300,000 cash for the beach house that you want to buy, right now you can get an interest rate of 2%. Right? I have a friend of mine just closed at 2.1 on a piece of property. So why would I move money from some place that's earning me 8? I'm lowballing it, but it's earning 8, it's earning 9.5, it's earning 10, to put it somewhere where I would have only had to pay 2. But I'm telling you, that's not for everybody. Some people, if you got $300,000, you should just pay it off, because you might just be bad with those types of things, right? Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't be embarrassed by that either. You should, if you just got the money, pay the thing off instead of getting yourself in some trouble, putting your family in a position where, and I've seen many people who were in the real estate game and they were doing really well and they own X number of properties, right? And then something happened in the market because they didn't understand all the ramifications of it. Fast forward, 2.5 years later, they don't own any of the properties and they live in an apartment. No, it happens. And, don't feel bad about it. Hopefully you use it as a learning lesson. You don't beat yourself up too much about it, right? And now that you learned those lessons, if you learned them, now when you come back, you'll come back on top a little bit differently. Yeah. It's all about your financial blueprint, man.
True. And so, final question, all right? Okay. What are some ways that you have educated yourself to think differently about money? So how did you shift the financial blueprint that you had growing up to the financial blueprint that you have today? And what could...
Okay, so in no specific order, if that's okay, because it's all in my head, kind of jumbled up. Okay. I was introduced an opportunity to get in the financial game, get in the financial business. I only joined. I never thought I would be good at it. Never. I didn't speak very well. I didn't own a suit then. It was just so many. I didn't like people. So I love them now, but I didn't like I love them. I love them in spite of themselves. Like, it's a bunch of people who are not lovable, but I still love them. Probably because I know who they are and whose they are, right? I know where they came from. I know their dad. So I got into it strictly to learn, right? When you introduced me, you said something. I didn't learn the tricks of the trade. I learned the trade. And that's very true. When I first got in this game, I would spend an inordinate amount of time reading prospectuses, reading certain things. I would take time away from my family. It was a little coffee shop near where I live called the Daily Grind at that time. Now it's called Town Center Cold Press. But I would go there and literally spend, especially a Sunday after church, feed my wife, right? Feed my daughters. My wife loved to take a nap. So she would come home, take a nap. I would jump back in the car, go to Daily Grind, get me a Karamoka nut, sit there and literally read a prospectus. Read an annuity thing, read a mutual fund thing, and I studied my craft. That was one way. Now, everybody's not going to do that part, right? But I started falling in love with learning it. Although a lot of that jargon was way over my head at the time, I started falling in love with learning it. And then I found I had a gift. I had a gift to take all of that complexity that's in those different things, and then I could break it down as my buddy here, I could break it down Barney style. I could regurgitate it back to somebody like it was a Barney song, and they would catch it. So it was a gift. And that part was fun to me. It was fun to be able to empower somebody with enough knowledge that now they know what questions to ask and they know where to start. So that was a big one. 2, I start reading outside of the financial industry. I start reading for myself. But not about money, about mindset about money. So probably one of my favorite books when it comes to that, and that's where this financial blueprint stuff comes from, is Secrets of a Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. I have it in audio. I have the abridged version. I have the unabridged version. I got it in print. I just got that book. It's not a book to me. It's a manual. And he talked about your financial blueprint, and it woke me up. It made me see that some of the things my mom had said, my dad had said, my grandmother on my mom's side, my grandmother on my father's side, things that they said, it started coming to me as like, holy crap, oh my God, that's where I got that from. And it wasn't even true. Oh, right. And I wasn't mad at them because that's what they heard. You know how you just hear stuff and then you just start regurgitating it? And sometimes we start regurgitating without even examining it.
Yeah.
It just sounded cool. Right. So I realized a lot of that stuff was so false. And so it started changing me. But that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich, The Power of Thinking Big. I could go on forever with this stuff. There's a pastor out in Atlanta by the name of Lee Jenkins. I believe he was running for office out there too. But years ago, I got to meet him. He formerly played for the NFL. Then he became a financial advisor. Ran his own practice. I think he worked for Raymond James for a little bit. But he wrote a couple of books. Taking Care of Business, Building a Legacy for the African American Family. Right? He's gonna owe me some money. Me plugging him like this, right? But you can still get his books from Amazon. He's got a few more. He got a couple more. I got them all down in my library. But reading those types of books help me not want. I'm a former counselor for Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey's stuff, and I always tell my clients I pick up where Dave leaves off. He gives you a bunch of knowledge, right? I was joking with somebody on Facebook earlier because a guy got on Facebook and said, "Hey, anybody know a good financial advisor?" Right? And some people would put my name in there and stuff like that. But one of the guys who had responded put Dave Ramsey. Well, Dave Ramsey's not a financial advisor. Right? He sells books. That's what he does, okay? And sometimes I have people who say, what Susie Orman said, what Dave Ramsey said. Well, I'm looking at your financial situation specifically to you, not some general stuff that they put out. And I've literally told the lady, well, if you want to listen to Dave, it takes 3, 4, 6 meetings for me to say this to you. But every time I talk to you, I'm giving you some advice, and you reference Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman, I say, okay, call them, let them be your financial advisor, and I'll walk them to the elevator. I refuse to deal with mental root canals. If you're a mental root canal, there's no sense of us talking.
Yeah.
And I don't have any hard feelings for it. You know how many millions of people look how many people still struggling. It's millions of people who need my help. So the 2, 3 people, 800 people that don't want my help, I'm fine with that. But 3 generations from now, my great great grandchildren ain't gonna realize that you turned us down. So I don't allow us to affect us today.
All right.
But those types of things are what I did and how my blueprint changed. I started reading. Oh, last one, big one, huge one, probably bigger than the ones I already named. I put my ego in my pocket and I started asking people stuff. It's embarrassing. It feels funny. But I start getting in people's face. Hey man, how do you do that? Hey, what is that about? I probably, it may have sounded like stupid questions, but what I noticed, nobody ever treated me like it was a stupid question. And I know for a fact, thinking back now, there was a really stupid question. Like somebody at my age and income or whatever the case may be at that time, I should have known those answers, but I didn't. And I was okay with looking stupid to get it. Yeah, I'm so far past trying to be cool. I just want to be ignorantly wealthy. Right? So if I had to choose one, do I want to be ignorantly wealthy, right? Or look cool, right? Look, I'm a geek, I'm a nerd, I'm not as fly, I don't know what all the terminology and the hip stuff is, but I'm ignorantly wealthy. Or I'm cool, I know all the stuff, I know the this and that, right? But I can't afford nothing, and no, I'm not interested in impressing you no more. So far past that, I don't. Yeah, and I start asking people questions. I would be at dinner with people, and they would say something, and it was foreign to me. I would ask them to elaborate. I would ask them to dig into that a little bit, or I would offer them to meet me for coffee. I buy the coffee, and I would ask them those questions. I mean, that's just what I think that was more important than the reading. And I think if you do that one, it's going to lead you to the reading and stuff anyway. But,
Right.
But when it's just something beautiful. It's 2 things. When you can put your ego to the side, right, and say, I don't know. That's huge. That's one of the biggest things that will save your life in so many senses. And when you can say, I'm sorry. You can if you can get to a place in your life where you could do them 2 things, I apologize, and hey, I don't know. Man, you become really dangerous at that point. Yeah. So hopefully I gave some insight there, especially for that 7 minutes I talked.
Well, something that you mentioned in terms of asking for help, we've spoken about this before, but getting around other people who are doing what you want to be doing financially, or who are a little further down the path than you are yourself. That's the only way to really challenge your current reality. You need to see something, you need exposure to something different than what you've been exposed to. And I think for a lot of people, they find themselves where they're not content, they're frustrated, they're tired, they're stressed out, they're anxious about money. And yet, because that's all they've known, they don't know where to go for help. They don't know how to get out of that cycle, out of that pattern. And so a lot of what you shared, right, getting around, reading some books, asking questions, right? All of those things are ways that you can start to shift. And so as we kind of wrap up for this evening, I want to shift the conversation next week to some of the things that we talked about tonight in terms of investing in yourself, ways that you can invest in yourself. And I'm not talking about dollars, right? Like not investing money in the market, right? We'll get to that later. Next week, I really want to talk about, right? Now we're shifting our mindset. It requires you to make an investment in yourself. And something that I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and when the speaker said this, I was just like, that makes so much sense. And that's a shift in mindset. She said that investments are essential. So investing in yourself to get the information, to get the education so that you can do something differently is essential to becoming financially free, to becoming, creating generational wealth, to leaving a legacy, right? You have to make the investment. And too often we shy away from making the investment, or we don't feel like we can afford it, but you really can't afford not to make the investment because nothing will change.
For sure. Because there's a big difference between sacrificing your family and sacrificing for your family. And that's a shift in mindset. Some people say, oh, I can't afford to do the... I always say this, right? When the value's right, the cost doesn't matter. Right. And sometimes you just got to maybe dig into figuring out, is it worth it? Or are they worth it? Right. And the facts are, is if you're listening to me, if you can hear my voice right now, you're worth it. Whatever you got to do, as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral, you're worth it. Go for it. You can do it. Even if somebody told you can't.
They were operating from their blueprint, which you don't have to accept.
Please don't accept anybody else's blueprint. Build yours.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, John, for sharing your insight tonight. I really, we're gonna have some fun this month. Like I said, people are shifting their mindset, so they're looking at setting goals for 2021 and planning for finishing out 2020, whatever the case may be. And so you got to start from the foundation, right? It starts with your mindset. So that's why I wanted to have that conversation today. But next week, we're going to be talking about investing in yourself. What are some ways that you can invest in yourself? And maybe we'll talk about some of the books that we shared tonight, some of the recommended books. And for those who, maybe you're a little further down the path, you already have a different money mindset. You may be looking for somebody to help you move in a different direction financially, put some things actually in place. You can certainly reach out to myself or John, or take our free assessment at momentum-mentors.com. And that survey will just kind of give us an assessment of where you are, right? No personal information has to be shared, but give us an assessment of where you are right now financially, what kind of income you have, what your financial goals are. And then we can help you take the next step to put certain things in place to be able to reach your financial goals tangibly, right? So tonight we're talking about some of the intangibles, but we can help you tangibly move forward as well with building your money mindset. So thank you again, John. Thank you all for tuning in. Hey, if you got some value out of tonight, like, share, tell a friend. All we want to do is bring value. Like John said, when the value is right, the cost doesn't matter. And this doesn't cost you anything but time is your most valuable asset. And so we appreciate you sharing your time with us this evening, and hopefully you can share it with someone else.
Absolutely.
So any final words, John, before we sign off?
Hey, I noticed I don't see a whole lot of posts about, hey, 2021 is going to be my year. And I would like to start seeing that. I would like people to start believing that 2021 is going to be your year. Even if the pandemic continues, even if coronavirus, even if the vaccines or whatever the case, whatever you're looking for to come about before you believe 2021 is going to be your year, I want you to put that to the side, because you can either be a victim of your circumstances or an architect of your future. So 2021 is going to be your year. Let's start planning for it now. Let's create a great blueprint and let's build it.
All right. See you guys next week.